Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for another installment in my series where I look at various clubs' record signings that they have made since 1992, because apparently that's when football started according to this series, and rank them from worst to best. And today it is the turn of the nouveau-riche Newcastle United to be featured. In this series so far, I've covered the likes of Man City, Man United, Liverpool and Barcelona, and if you want to check any of those episodes out, there'll be a playlist link in the description down below, or indeed on the end screen of this video. And like with all the other videos in this series, the players are ranked based on how good of a signing they were for the club in question, rather than how good they were as players. So if you disagree with any of my selections, which you are of course more than welcome to do, please do so on the basis of how good, or indeed how bad of a signing you think they were. Also, apologies if I sound on the verge of death. I am suffering from a cold at the moment, but hopefully you enjoy the video nonetheless. And of course, if you do, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And without any further ado, here is how I would rank every single one of Newcastle's record signings that they have made since 1992 from worst to best. 10th. Michael Owen. We start off our list with a man who is absolutely reviled in Newcastle, and with good reason, but also with a signing which I think is the only bad one in this entire video. When Michael Owen signed from Real Madrid on 2005 summer deadline day for £16 million, Toon fans were frothing at the mouth with the prospect of a strike partnership of Owen and Alan Shearer. 20,000 fans greeted him at St James's Park upon arrival, and originally he didn't let them down, scoring 7 goals in his first 11 games. But in December 2005, he broke a metatarsal bone, and upon his return to action at the 2006 World Cup with England, he then ruptured his cruciate ligament, meaning he didn't play again for the club until April 2007. He produced his best form under the management of Kevin Keegan when he hit 9 goals in 14 games, but a contract dispute led to him deciding to depart the club on a free at the end of the 2008-09 campaign. Worse still, he allegedly requested not to play in Newcastle's final game of the season against Aston Villa, which they needed to win to have a chance of avoiding relegation to the Championship, in fear of getting injured and thus ruining his chances of finding a new club. Newcastle lost, they were relegated, and Owen was branded a mercenary. He swiftly departed to Manchester United on a free, and in 2019 he revealed that he never wants to join the Magpies in the first place, instead preferring to move back to his old club, Liverpool, but he only went to the North East as Liverpool couldn't match Newcastle's initial offer. More derogatory comments in the media about the club have irreparably damaged his relationship with the Newcastle fans, and in spite of him having an okay record for the club with 30 goals in 79 games, he has to come in last in this video, given his injury record, the finances involved in the deal, his hefty wages, and those comments. 9th. Alexander Isak. Now, I will be honest, whilst picking who came in first and last in this video was actually pretty straightforward, ranking the positions between first and last, so i.e. 9th to 2nd, was the most difficult to do out of any video that I've made in this series thus far. After a lot of toing and froing, I've ended up putting Alexander Isak in 9th, although that is purely on the basis that it's impossible to accurately judge him as a signing right now. Currently Newcastle's most expensive signing of all time, the Swedish striker moved from Real Sociedad near the end of this summer's transfer window, and although the exact fee was undisclosed, it was rumoured to be around £63 million, but it was confirmed to be a club record deal. He hit 17 goals in 34 games in 2020-21 for the Basque outfit, but he was plagued by inconsistency last time out and only struck on 6 occasions. That didn't stop the Magpies from coughing up a small fortune to bring him to St James's Park, and in his first 3 games, he scored twice, including a thunderous finish against Liverpool on his debut, although he was recently ruled out until December, i.e. after the World Cup, with a thigh injury. An all-round striker with pace, strength and a keen eye for goal, if he can iron out some of the inconsistencies in his game and shake off this latest injury setback, he will become a fan favourite in no time at all. However, as implied at the start of this segment, given that he has only been at the club for a matter of weeks, it is still way too early to accurately judge him as a signing, so you can probably disregard his position in this list, but for what it's worth, I do think he will turn out to be a very good piece of business by the club, even if the price was a little bit extortionate. 8th. Ruel Fox. After starring for Norwich for the best part of 8 years, helping them finish 3rd in the inaugural Premier League season, winger Ruel Fox was snapped up by Newcastle in February 1994 for around £2.25 million. A pacey and productive wide player, the future Montserrat international played a key role in the club qualifying for European football in 1993-94, featuring in all barring 2 of the club's final 16 league games. The next season would see him hit new heights, as he racked up 10 goals and 11 assists across 40 Premier League outings, although the sale of their prolific striker Andy Cole saw the club slump to 6th in the league come the end of the campaign. What's more, with Keith Gillespie's arrival as a part of that Cole deal, Fox began to feature more prominently as a striker rather than in his preferred position on the flanks, despite not being too comfortable in that role, given his small frame and lack of physical presence. In the end, he fell out of favour at the start of the 1995-96 season and was sold to Spurs, although the club did make a profit of just under £2 million on him. I think, on the balance of things, the quality ahead of him in this video restricts Fox to a spot in 8th, but make no mistake, this was a very good signing by the Magpies. 7th, Miguel Almirón. Miguel Almirón was the first player to break Newcastle's club record transfer fee during the turbulent and disastrous ownership of Mike Ashley, which says a lot given that Ashley bought the club back in 2007. Following 2 excellent seasons with Atlanta United in the MLS, where he was named in the team of the season in both the 2017 and 2018 campaigns with a combined 43 goals and assists in 70 games, the Magpies won the race to sign the Paraguayan in January 2019, who had also been wanted by the likes of Napoli and Inter Milan, for £21 million. A versatile forward who can play anywhere along the front line but is at his best when operating on either flank, Almirón is a tireless runner who gives nothing less than 100% whenever he plays, and his energy has often been a massive boost to the team. However, his output has undeniably dropped somewhat, as across 134 games for the club, he's scored just 19 goals and registered only 5 assists, although as of the time of this recording, he is on a hot streak of 4 goals in 4 games, including wonder strikes against Fulham and Everton. He is definitely a cult hero and will have a part to play in the club's rise up the Premier League table over the coming years, and although I originally thought that role would become much more peripheral as better players come in, his great form of late may well suggest otherwise. For now though, he comes in 7th. 6th, Faustino Asprilla. One of Newcastle's more curious signings, I think it's fair to say, Faustino Asprilla was absolutely adored by the Newcastle faithful as well as his teammates, yet he struggled to nail down a regular starting berth or produce his best form on a consistent basis. When he arrived from Parma in February 1996 for around £6.7 million, he was famously pictured in a sheepskin coat in the middle of a snowstorm, something which permanently endeared him to the fans. A striker blessed with flair, pace and strength, his best attribute, in the eyes of his teammates, was his unpredictability, which made him a nightmare to play against, and sometimes to play alongside as well. However, manager Kevin Keegan desperately tried to shoehorn Asprilla into the side at the expense of the team's balance and structure, and their 1995-96 season title challenge spectacularly derailed as they blew a 12-point lead over Manchester United to finish in 2nd behind the Red Devils. The Colombian was, perhaps unfairly, blamed for this collapse, and the following season, after Alan Shearer arrived at the club, Asprilla's first-team opportunities became even more limited than before. In spite of this, he loved everyone at the club and everyone adored him back, and he saved one magical performance for a game at St James's Park against Barcelona in the Champions League in September 1997, bagging a hat-trick in a famous 3-2 win for the Geordies. Never the most prolific of strikers, he only managed 18 goals in 61 games for the club after all, he went back to Parma 4 months after that heroic display against Barcelona for £6 million, and although there were a few off-the-pitch issues that blighted his time in the Northeast, his legendary cult status at the club remains forever intact, hence his spot in 6th. 5th, Joelinton. If I were to conduct this exact video about a year or so ago, Joelinton may well have been stone dead last, or, at the absolute highest, just above Michael Owen. However, his transformation ever since Eddie Howe arrived at the club has been nothing short of remarkable and has pushed him up a few places. Signed from Hoffenheim in 2019 for £40 million, the Brazilian striker had enjoyed an okay campaign in the Bundesliga with 7 goals in 28 games, but I'm not sure if that alone justified such a hefty price tag. Following a winning goal in his 3rd game for the club against Tottenham though, the signs looked promising, but he would have to wait until June for his next league goal in a 3-0 win over Sheffield United. He often cut a frustrated and lonely figure up top, deprived of service and seemingly unable to either trap the ball or finish it, and in 2020-21 he could only muster 4 league goals. At this point, Newcastle fans were probably thinking, well, Mike Ashley never spends that amount of money on a single player, and when he does, we get this in return? Maybe he should have kept his checkbook in his pocket after all. But in a game against Norwich last season, following a red card to Kieran Clark, Joelinton was moved back into midfield and put in a very good performance. From then on, he emerged as a stunning box-to-box midfielder with incredible stamina, energy and tackling ability, and his display in a 1-1 draw against Manchester United convinced Howe that the Brazilian's future lay in the centre of the park. He has continued to impress ever since, being voted as the club's player of the season for 2021-22 and becoming indispensable to Newcastle's style of play. Unfortunately, given his struggles for the best part of 2.5 years, I don't think I can rank him any higher than 5th for now, but it finally seems as though this former big money flop is coming good. Talk about a turnaround. 4th, Darren Peacock. Royal Fox's status as Newcastle's most expensive player of all time lasted for just a month, as centre-back Darren Peacock came in for £2.7 million in March 1994 from QPR. For the next 4 years, he was the mainstay in the Magpies' back line, racking up 176 games for the club in that time. But whilst the other defenders were given licence to attack, even Peacock's centre-back partner, who was most often Philippe Albert, the Bristolian would stay back and make sure that they weren't completely exposed if and when they lost the ball. Keegan's so-called great entertainers were essentially held down by Peacock, and in an interview with the Newcastle Chronicle a few years ago, he stated that whenever he demanded that some of his teammates helped out in defence, they would either pretend not to hear, give snide or sarcastic remarks in response, or just charge forward anyway. No matter, Peacock still performed admirably as the defensive linchpin for the great entertainers and helped the club finish 3rd, 6th and then 2nd in consecutive seasons, as well as scoring the opening goal in that famous 5-0 demolition of Manchester United in October 1996. However, Kenny Dalglish's arrival as manager in 1997 spelt the end of his time on Tyneside, and prior to the 1998-99 season, he was moved on to pastures new, joining Blackburn for around £100,000. Undoubtedly the least flashy or high-profile player in this video, he was the glue that held the team together, and in spite of the huge loss that they made on him, I think he's more than worthy of a spot in 4th. 3rd, Les Ferdinand. Nicknamed Sir Les on Tyneside, Les Ferdinand signed for the club from QPR in 1995, 3 years after they tried to sign him for £3.3 million, as a replacement for a man who features next. In his previous 3 Premier League seasons, Ferdinand had smashed home 60 goals, and he therefore commanded a £6 million fee, in spite of being aged 28 at that point. It would prove to be worth every penny though, as he continued his insane goal-scoring form into the 1995-96 campaign, hitting 25 goals in 37 games, which put him 3rd in the Premier League Golden Boot race, behind only Robbie Fowler and Alan Shearer. The latter would then partner Ferdinand up front the following campaign, and they forged an incredible partnership to fire the club to another runners-up spot, with Ferdinand bagging 16 goals and creating 9 more. Much like with Peacock though, Ferdinand's time in the North East was brought to a premature end when Dalglish decided to sell him in order to raise funds for future signings, and in 2019, the striker revealed that he was devastated to leave and had wanted to spend the rest of his career there. Nonetheless, he was moved on to Tottenham, his boyhood club, for exactly the same amount that Newcastle originally paid for him, meaning that they essentially broke even and got a striker in his peak years. In all, a spot in 3rd is definitely justified. 2nd, Andy Cole. Despite only spending just under 2 years at Newcastle, Andy Cole is undoubtedly one of the best signings the club have ever made, both on and off the pitch. After establishing himself as a bright prospect at Bristol City, Keegan decided that Cole was the final piece to Newcastle's jigsaw and signed him for around £1.75 million in March 1993. The manager was proven right, as in his first 12 games for the club, Cole scored 12 goals and helped the Magpies earn promotion back to the top flight after 4 years away. He didn't stop there though, as in 1993-94 he had what can only be described as a freakish season, notching up an insane tally of 34 goals and 13 assists in just 40 games, firing Newcastle to 3rd in their debut Premier League campaign and helping them finish as the league's top scorers. However, in January 1995, by which point Cole had hit 68 goals in 84 games in all competitions, he was stunningly sold to Manchester United for £6 million plus Keith Gillespie, a British record transfer fee, and Keegan had to go out and speak to disgruntled Newcastle fans on the day of the transfer to explain the reasons behind his decision. Cole went on record to say that he himself was sad at leaving the club, but regardless, he was the striker who helped Newcastle return to the top of the English game, and they turned an immense profit on him when they sold him, albeit slightly acrimoniously. But regardless, his legacy at the club is untouched, and he more than merits a spot in 2nd. 1st, Alan Shearer. I mean, if I didn't put Alan Shearer first, I don't think I would ever be allowed into Newcastle ever again on account of breaking multiple unwritten laws. Arguably Newcastle's greatest player of all time, Shearer chose to sign for his boyhood club over Manchester United in 1996 for what was then a world record fee, never mind just a club record fee, of £15 million. Greeted by thousands of baying fans when he was unveiled at St James's Park, the lifelong Geordie, who had spent most of his childhood watching Newcastle games in the Gallagher End, did not let them down. Whilst he wasn't as prolific as he had been during his 4 years at Blackburn, where he scored 130 goals in 171 games and won a Premier League title in 1995, he still averaged better than a goal every other game for the team. He was capable of scoring any type of goal, from headers and tap-ins to penalties, free kicks and bullet volleys from range. Shearer had the lot. In February 2006, he broke Jackie Milburn's goal-scoring record for the club with a close-range toe poke against Portsmouth at the Gallagher End, and he retired at the end of that season, with his final ever kick in professional football being a penalty, which he scored, against arch-rival Sunderland, with 206 goals in 405 games to his name. The only downside was that he never won a trophy in the North East, reaching 2 consecutive FA Cup finals in 1988 and 1999, only to lose them both, and finishing second in the league in 1997. But there is a reason why Shearer is revered in those parts. He chose his boyhood club over certain trophies at Manchester United, was their figurehead and focal point in attack for a decade, and became their all-time record goal scorer. There's no way he can finish anywhere else but top. And that just about wraps up today's video, looking at how I would rank every one of Newcastle's record signings that they have made since 1992 from worst to best. If you disagree with any of my selections, let me know which ones you would change down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, of course, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and you can ring the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload a video straight away. And of course, if you want to check out any of the other episodes in this series, there should be a link on screen about here or so, and there's also a playlist link in the description, just in case the link on screen wasn't enough for you. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.